the labor of obtaining the cattle of Geryon. The hero of this story, Hercules, grew impatient, wanting to get on with the next labor.
And now, what is the labor I have to complete on my path of atonement?
Eurystheus kept thinking to himself, knowing that only a few labors remained where he could have Hera's end goal become a reality, something so dangerous that any chance of survival would be considered a dream.
I appreciate your patience, Hercules, son of Amphitryon. Your next labor is to obtain the cattle of Geryon. Bring the cattle here.
The name Geryon means to cry out, shout, or roar. Geryon, with his cattle, resided on the most western part of the known world at the time. The Geryon was the son of the warrior Chrysaor, whose name means golden sword, and his mother was Caliroi, which means good flow. In another story, Chrysaor came from the body of the Medusa when Perseus beheaded her. Caliroi was the daughter of the Titans Oceanus and Tethys. On top of this unique ancestry, he had 3 heads, 3 upper bodies, and 3 pairs of legs, all connected on a single waist. Geryon lived on an island called Erythia, meaning the red elemental. He kept a herd of red cattle, stained by the sunset. This place, close to the Straits of Gibraltar, also known as the Gates of Hercules from this labor, separating the Mediterranean Sea from the Atlantic. These red cattle were guarded by Orthus, the 2-headed dog, whose name means upright and straight. Hercules began his journey, and difficulties can from the early start. While trying to cross desolate lands, he was being beaten by the intense rays of the sun, and in frustration shot some arrows at the sun, who at the time was the sun god Helios. This impressed Helios, and in return, Hercules was granted a huge golden cup or goblet, which he used to travel to the island. As soon as he arrived, Orthus jumped at him, and Hercules hit him with the olive branch club, and then the herdsman, Eurytion, attacked. After finishing with Eurytion, Hercules got to the cattle when Geryon finally took notice of the events and began the confrontation. In a spectacular conflict, Hercules fought Geryon with the 3 bodies, which all had a pair of arms, holding a weapon and a shield. On each shield a different charge symbol was displayed, a tripod, the face of a gorgon, and a dove. Hercules, using the arrows with hydra poison, laced on the tips, shot Geryon across all his bodies till he ceased to exist. Hercules gathered the red cattle and began to herd them back to Tiryns, but the journey was full of mishaps. Hera sent a gadfly to bite the cattle, causing them to scatter, and Hercules had to go in multiple directions to recover them. Hera even caused a river to overflow, making it hard to cross with the cattle, so he filled it with stones. Upon arrival in Tiryns, Eurystheus sacrificed them to Hera. Interpretation of the myth with the symbolic elements. The interaction of Hercules with Helios, the sun god, represents a change in the philosophy that the sun, or light, is vindictive, seeking to extract pain as payment for its gifts. In the ancient world, many traditions had accepted the concept that in order to obtain more light and see further pain and suffering was a necessary exchange in return. If accepted, it becomes a foothold to convince people that they must suffer for other necessities. Hercules receiving a gift from an act of defiance goes against that previous tradition. Geryon himself is a representation of the 3 phases of Dionysus. Each body is holding a shield, symbolizing a different phase. The tripod is for the chthonic phase, of death and rebirth. The dying and rising god, a corn god since, with death, comes fertility in that tradition. The gorgon is the 2nd phase, the roarer tied to the middle earth elevation from chthonic. Lastly is the dove for the ascension phase. Initiates to this were considered to have lived different lives held together in a single individual. The dog Orthus is the god of the seen and unseen worlds merged together, an end to duality. The end of Orthus is a return to duality. The red cattle stained by the light of the sunset are a desire to obtain divine energy from beyond this world, between day and night, between light and darkness. In the sunset, a sign of hope for those seeking to escape the cycles of endless torture in this realm of existence. The cows as an ideal which can resonate and absorb the sunset. The end of Geryon and the continuation of Hercules shows that his tradition, by being an embodiment of Dias, Zeus, was the future. Extra notes. Seneca, Hercules Furens 2, 3-1, translation Miller. Roman tragedy, 1st AD. The labors of Heracles. Among his herds in the distant land of Hesperia, Spain, the three-shaped shepherd Geryon of the Tartessian shore was killed, and his cattle driven as spoil from the farthest west. Ovid, Metamorphoses 9.184, translation Melville. Roman poet 1st BC to 1st AD. I, Hercules, faced unafraid the triple heads of the herdsmen of Hyberus Geryon. Philostratus, Life of Apollonius of Tyana, 5.4-5, translation Conybeare, Greek biography 1st to 2nd AD. The city of Gadara in Iberia is situated at the extreme end of Europe. They say that the latter Heracles of Thebes penetrated as far as the neighboring city of Erythia, on which occasion he took captive Geryon and his cows, and they say that in his devotion to wisdom he traversed the whole earth to its limits. Strabo, Geography, 3.2.13. The poets who came after Homer keep dinning into our ears similar stories, myths set in Iberia, Spain. Diodorus Siculus, Library of History, 4.18.2. And after Heracles had visited a large part of Libya, he arrived at the ocean near Gadara, where he set up pillars on each of the two continents. His fleet accompanied him along the coast, and on it he crossed over into Iberia. Plato, Gorgias, 484b, translation Lamb, Greek philosopher, 4th century BC. Pindar in the Ode says, "Law the sovereign of all, mortals and immortals," which, so he continues, carries all with highest hand, justifying the utmost force. In proof, I take the deeds of Heracles for unpurchased. It tells how he drove off the cows as neither a purchase nor a gift from Geryones, taking it as a natural right that cows and any other possessions of the inferior and weaker should all belong to the superior and stronger. Diodorus Siculus, Library of History, 4.17.1, translation Old Father, Greek historian 1st BC. Eurystheus then enjoined him Hercules as a 10th labor, the bringing back of the cattle of Geryones, which pastured in the parts of Iberia, Spain, which slope towards the ocean. Summary. Traditions are a choice and have a philosophy that underlines them. Although written in stone, they too can change. Traditions can create friction between themselves, and that is part of the story that comes with change in this world. Some are so dedicated to their tradition that they become an embodiment of the ideals held, and their original self ceases to exist.